Season 2 of Game of Thrones premiered in April of 2012, 13 years after the release of A Clash of Kings, the book on which this season is theoretically based on. I say theoretically because while most of the storylines from the book have been adapted faithfully, there is one that saw such strong divergence that it's a completely different story. I speak of course of the storyline of Daenerys Targaryen. One could of course argue that the showrunners simply needed to expand her story, since Dany only has 5 chapters in A Clash of Kings. That, too, will soon turn out to be false, since rather than expand on the existing material, the showrunners decided to cut what she has in the books and invent a completely new storyline. The reason for these changes is probably the showrunners' lack of interest in Dany's storyline and their tendency to cut magical and fantastical elements, of which Dany's storyline in Clash is full of, as well as their decision to not adapt Dany's character in the way she is in the books, but rather to create an OC that is nothing like her book counterpart. And remember, this is Season 2 out of 8. Here's a reminder. This is a second part of the series. In case you hadn't seen it, I encourage you to start with the first part, dealing with Season 1 of Game of Thrones and Book 1 of A Song of Ice and Fire. If you believe that the first season was faithful to the source material, and you don't need to bother yourself with that, you could not be further from truth. The changes in Season 2 follow a pattern already established in Season 1, and in order to fully grasp the extent of it, you should start with Part 1 of the series. Before we start, remember that if you like my content, like, subscribe and share so that more people can see it. Make sure to click the notification button so that you never miss a new video. Also, you can listen to this on Spotify if you prefer. Check the link in the description. The last time we parted with Dany, she had just woken dragons from stone, but contrary to what some people claim, that does not give her any shortcuts. Since Drogo's Kalasar had dispersed and turned into several smaller Kalasars, returning to the Dothraki Sea is dangerous, as is going into the territory of the Landmen. Even the hatchlings offer no protection. First we commission is the scene of Daenerys naming her dragons and the reasons behind it. Instead we get this.
What did your brother say about them, Khaleesi?
He said they meat.
He didn't tell you what kind of meat.
My brother didn't know anything about dragons. He didn't know anything about anything.
Compare and contrast. The green one shall be called Rhaegal, for my valiant brother who died on the green banks of the Trident. The cream and gold I shall call Viserion. Viserys was cruel and weak and frightened, yet he was my brother still. His dragon will do what he could not. And the black beast? Asked Ser Jorah Mormont. The black, she said, is Drogon. The disregard towards the relationship Daenerys and Viserys had continues. Viserys was extremely abusive to Daenerys, yet she still grieved him in Book 1 and named her dragon after him, hoping that he will achieve what Viserys could not. Daenerys will continue to think about Viserys also in A Storm of Swords and in A Dance with Dragons. I don't think Show Daenerys mentions him ever again. That might be because the retrieval of the throne is a matter of ambition for Show Daenerys, whereas for Book Dany it had always been the sense of duty instilled by Viserys. And that becomes clear once we actually reach Dance. Silver, Dany's beloved filly, does not die in the books. In fact, she still lives until Dany reaches Meereen. Josh was even asked about that.
Is there a particular reason why Silver dies in this episode?
You know, that surprised me too when I saw that. Because Silver is the Silver is definitely not dead in the books. In fact, I was just writing a scene, the Battle of Meereen, which opens the Winds of Winter, where Ser Barristan, Dany is gone from the city, so Ser Barristan rides the Silver into battle to kind of conjure her up. So the horse is still around in book 6 in the thing, and is only dead in the TV show. I guess they just wanted to show the crossing the Red Waste and how dangerous it is. On the other hand, although they killed the horse, they kept the handmaid alive. You may recall that in the book, one of Dany's handmaids dies of thirst and sickness and dehydration while crossing the Red Waste.
I guess that is of no consequence, because the scene of Daenerys finding her own personal freedom for the first time when she first rides her, as well as the continued love she had for the animal, were not shown in the show. We will get to Doria in a second. For now, I want to point out something else.
No one will take my dragons.
They're too weak to fight. As are your people. You must be their strength.
As you are mine.
This is a very weird instance of Jorah being given Dany's internal monologue from the books. They left a trail of dead and dying horses behind them as they went, for Pono, Jacko and the others had seized the best of Drogo's herds, leaving to Dany the old and the scrawny, the sickly and the lame, the broken animals and the ill-tempered. It was the same with the people. They are not strong, she told herself, so I must be their strength. I must show no fear, no weakness, no doubt. However frightened my heart, when they look upon my face, they must see only Drogo's queen. She felt older than her 14 years. If ever she had truly been a girl, that time was done. Dany kissed him lightly on the cheek. It hurt her to see him smile. I must be strong for him as well, she thought grimly. A knight he may be, but I am the blood of the dragon. Daenerys is strength to everyone, including Jorah. Dany cannot rely on him, she must be strong for him as well. This is not something that can be only relayed in the internal monologue. Why not have her say, yeah, I must be strength for these people, no matter what happens, and instead give this assertion to Jorah, and her somehow needing to rely on him in turn? Just ridiculous. The significant change in Jorah's characterization, as well as his interactions with Dany, will be expanded on later as the season progresses. Now let's return to Doria. In the books, she does not make it out of the Red Waste. Doria grew gaunt and hollow-eyed, and her soft golden hair turned brittle as straw. Doria took a fever, and grew worse with every league they crossed. Her lips and hands broke with blood blisters, her hair came out in clumps, and one even fall she lacked the strength to mount her horse. Jago said they must leave her, or bind her to her saddle, but Dany remembered a night on the Dothraki Sea, when the Lysian girl had taught her secrets, so that Jago might love her more. She gave Doria water from her own skin, cooled her brow with a damp cloth, and held her hand until she died, shivering. Only then would she permit the Khalasar to press on. Dany stops her entire Khalasar to stay with Doria until she dies, caring for her herself and holding her hand as she dies. This is monumental. Point me out to a single ruler in the current story who would extend this much grace, love and compassion for a servant. The servant that also gets called her slave by some bright minds of this fandom, by the way. In the books, as Dany's Khalasar moves through the desert, they encounter a ghost city. The distant white walls promised rest and safety, a chance to heal and grow strong, and Dany wanted nothing so much as to rush toward them. Instead, she turned to her blood riders. Blood of my blood, go ahead of us and learn the name of this city, and what manner of welcome we should expect. Aye, Khaleesi, said Aggo. Her riders were not long in returning. Rakharo swung down from his saddle. From his medallion belt hung the great carving arak that Dany had bestowed on him when she named him Blood Rider. This city is dead, Khaleesi. Nameless and godless we found it, the gates broken, only wind and flies moving through the streets. Only after her Khalasar has the time to rest and heal in the ghost city does she send Jago, Aggo and Rakharo to scout the Red Waste. The next morn she summoned her blood riders. Blood of my blood, she told the three of them. I have need of you. Each of you is to choose 3 horses, the hardiest and healthiest that remain to us. Load as much water and food as your mounts can bear, and ride forth for me. Aggo shall strike southwest, Rakharo due south. Jago, you are to follow Shirak Kie on southeast. What shall we seek, Khaleesi? Asked Jago. Whatever there is, Dany answered. Seek for other cities, living and dead. Seek for caravans and people. Seek for rivers and lakes and the great South Sea. Find how far this waste extends before us, and what lies on the other side. When I leave this place, I do not mean to strike out blind again. I will know where I am bound, and how best to get there. In the show, there is no Vaes Toloro, as the city is later named. But apparently, off-screen, Dany had named 3 men of her Khalasar as blood riders.
Rakharo, Aggo, Kavado. Vishera Kishia. Mea Dotre Teeth, Mea Vasha Teeth, Mea Hasha Teeth.
Hashvini Foroki, Jakhalisi.
Baez, Sheteri Shedrevi, Everikasia Saj. She Ashareas, Shetareas. Achelea Shahun, Mareki Veki Yome Anon.
In the books, there was an entire scene dedicated to her naming her blood riders before she stepped into the pyre. She also bestowed them with traditional Dothraki bride gifts. In Book 1, we learn that these gifts are later transferred to the groom's blood riders, but by naming her blood riders and giving them these gifts, Dany reverses this patriarchal custom. Why do I find it relevant? Because Daenerys being the first female Khal fits the broader pattern of her being a gendered subversion. Channel regulars probably know the "why is Dany a princess and not a prince" quote by heart now, but the books speak for themselves in this regard as well. Drogo, Aggo and Rakharo accepting Dany's authority and becoming the first blood riders to a woman is monumental and points towards certain things, but as always Songs fans are blind to it, likely in no small part because of the lingering influence of the show. In the grand scheme of things, we see that this does not matter in the slightest anyway, because the show did not even bother explaining what blood riders are, and Dothraki will soon be gone from our screens, in spite of being constant presence around Daenerys in the books, well into A Dance with Dragons.
Rakharo, Atshalika Ani, Sakboikoi. You never have.
This is bad time to start.
I found this puzzling. Why hasn't she sent out the scouts before? Why omit Vaes Toloro at all? Sending scouts from Vaes Toloro shows Dany's strategic ability as well as the care and affection she has for her people. She waited until Drogo, Aggo and Rakharo, the strongest warriors of her Khalasar, recuperated alongside everyone else before she sent the riders to scout the area. If she is in the middle of the waste and cannot know how far it stretches, then the riders can easily get lost, but with Vaes Toloro, the blood riders have a point of reference they can always return to, while they don't have it with just a random camp in the middle of the desert. This may be because they could not find a suitable filming location for Vaes Toloro, or had no budget to build a separate set. I was actually interested in whether this is the case and began checking filming locations. I am not sure where the Red Waste scenes were filmed, but the scenes in Karth were filmed in the Croatian island of Lokrum, a gorgeous location, as is all of Croatia, very near Dubrovnik, where many of King's Landing scenes were filmed. In fact, on the very island of Lokrum, there are ruins of the old monastery that could serve as Vaes Toloro with some filming tricks. Granted, I know next to nothing about location scouting, nor about production, but the cutting of Vaes Toloro nonetheless strikes me as lazy. In the books, all three of Dany's blood riders returned from the scouting mission. The show decided to kill Rakharo, however.
You don't need to see this.
He is blood of my blood. Who did this?
Calpono, perhaps? Called Diago. They don't like the idea of a woman leading a Khalasar.
They will like it far less when I am done with them.
Jorah attributes Rakharo's killing to a rival Khal encountering him. His braid is cut, meaning that it indeed should be the case. Does that mean that there's another Khalasar moving through the desert? This should not be the case. The Dothraki travel in huge hordes, and the Red Waste does not have water or flora and fauna that would sustain such a huge group. Where did he encounter the rival Khalasar? Rakharo is directed to go northeast. This means Rakharo went to the Bone Mountains, and I find it rather unlikely that he encountered a Khalasar there. At first I thought that this is supposed to be a replacement for Iroe, a girl from Lazar on behalf of whom Dany swears revenge, but it's not. Rakharo is all but forgotten further down the line, and is not brought up in Season 6. While I do appreciate Dany consoling Irri, this scene should have been reserved for her staying with the dying Doria. Rakharo still lives in the books. D&D said that Elias Gabriel intended to leave the production anyway, and that's why he was killed off. Thus, I can sort of get it, but it does not explain why Jhiqui had a whooping one scene before she was cut, as well as most of Dany's Khalasar getting murdered, including Irri. Irri's actress Amrita Acharya actually said that the showrunners wrote her out of the show. Thus, they worked very hard to remove the Dothraki from the production and isolate Dany from the culture she assimilated into via marriage. Dany's first chapter ends with Drogo returning with 3 emissaries from Karth. Drogo was gone so long that Dany feared him lost, but finally when they had all but ceased to look for him, he came riding up from the southeast. One of the guards that Aggo had posted saw him first and gave a shout, and Dany rushed to the walls to see for herself. It was true. Drogo came, yet not alone. Behind him rode 3 queerly garbed strangers atop angrily humped creatures that dwarf any horse. They drew rein before the city gates and looked up to see Dany on the wall above them. Blood of my blood, Drogo called. I have been to the great city Karth, and returned with 3 who would look on you with their own eyes. Dany stared down at the strangers. Here I stand. Look, if that is your pleasure. But first tell me your names. The pale man with the blue lips replied in the guttural Dothraki. I am Pyat Pri, the great warlock. The bald man with jewels in his nose answered in the Valerian of the Free Cities. I am Xarok Zoandaxus of the 13, a merchant prince of Karth. The woman in the lacquered wooden mask said in the common tongue of the 7 kingdoms. I am Quaithe of the Shadow. We come seeking dragons. Seek no more, Daenerys Targaryen told them. You have found them. You know, 3 mages coming to see baby Jesus, all that? Nah, the show decided that instead of the 3 emissaries personally visiting Dany and personally escorting her to Karth, the 3rd of Dany's Blood Riders returns with an invitation from Karth. But once they do get there, Dany has to all but beg and threaten the 13 into letting her in. Mind you, this is the scene many people point out when they try to weave their Mad Queen Dany foreshadowing. A scene that was never in the books because the Carthene were happy to host her.
I thought we were welcome.
If you heard a Dothraki horde was approaching your city, you might do the same, Khaleesi.
Horde? My name is Daenerys.
Stormborn of the House Targaryen.
You know me, my lord?
Only by reputation, Khaleesi, and I'm no lord, merely a humble merchant. They call you the Mother of Dragons.
And what should I call you?
Oh, my name is quite long and quite impossible for foreigners to pronounce. I am simply a trader of spices. But we are the 13, charged with the governance and protection of Karth, the greatest city that ever was or will be.
The beauty of Qarth is legendary. Qarth.
Might we see the dragons?
My friend, we have traveled very far. We have no food, no water. Once I see my people fed, I would be honored.
Forgive me, Mother of Dragons, but no man alive has seen a living dragon. Some of my more skeptical friends refuse to believe your children even exist. All we ask is the chance to see for ourselves.
I am not a liar.
Oh, I don't think you are. But as I've never met you before, my opinion on the matter is of limited value.
Where I come from, guests are treated with respect, not insulted at the gates.
Then perhaps you should return to where you come from. We wish you well.
What are you doing? You promised to receive me.
We have received you. Here we are, and here you are.
If you do not let us in, all of us will die.
Which we shall deeply regret. But Karth did not become the greatest city that ever was or will be by letting Dothraki savages through its gates.
Khaleesi, please be careful.
13! When my dragons are grown, we will take back what was stolen from me and destroy those who have wronged me. We will lay waste to armies and burn cities to the ground. Turn us away, and we will burn you first.
Ah, you are a true Targaryen. Only, as you said a moment ago, if we don't let you into the city, you will all die. And so...
Retreating in fear from a little girl is unbecoming of the greatest city that ever was or will be.
The discussion is over, Xaro Zoan Doxos. The 13 have spoken.
I am one of the 13, and I am still speaking.
The girl threatens to burn our city to the ground, and you would invite her in for a cup of wine?
She is the Mother of Dragons. Do you expect her to watch her people starve without breathing fire? I believe we can allow a few Dothraki through our gates without dooming our city. After all, here I am, a savage from the Summer Isles, and Karth still stands.
Our decision is final.
Very well. I invoke Sumai. I will vouch for her, her people, and her dragons, in accordance with the law.
Be it on your head.
Welcome to Karth, my lady.
What is the point of this scene? Dramatic tension, I suppose? The exposition that show Xaro is an immigrant from the Summer Isles? To show that Dany is a beggar even with dragons? I have no idea why Dany's entrance into Karth was rewritten like this. You cannot say this was done to expand on Dany's existing storyline in the books, because what was actually in the books, Vaes Toloro for instance, was also cut. I have a lingering suspicion that a lot of the changes in Season 2 can be explained by the fact that the showrunners simply didn't want to include Dany in this season, and would have preferably skipped the Karth storyline altogether, echoing the sentiments of the fans who also believe her Clash storyline to be irrelevant filler. We're on episode 3, which covers Dany's first chapter. Now is perhaps a good time to note that the pacing and placing of Dany's scenes is very weird this season. I already got this impression when covering season 1, but in season 1 it was not as jarring. Other characters have long, nicely flowing scenes, whereas Dany has bits and pieces here and there that are randomly cut. Was there any reason why Dany's tenure in the Red Waste needed to be dragged across 3 episodes? Cannot be because there was not enough material, because they cut Doria's death and they cut Vaes Toloro. This only gives strength to my hypothesis that the showrunners would have gladly cut Dany out of season 2 completely, but couldn't because she was a fan favorite already. First thing that the show omits is Daenerys' grand entrance into Karth, because the showrunners preferred to make Dany and her people grovel at the feet of the 13 to be let in. On the walls of Karth, men bet gongs to herald her coming, while others blew curious horns that encircled their bodies like great bronze snakes. A column of cavalry emerged from the city as her honor guards. The outer gates were banded with copper, the middle with iron. The innermost were studded with golden eyes. All opened at Dany's approach. As she rode her silver into the city, small children rushed out to scatter flowers in her path. They wore golden sandals and bright paint, no more. In the show, Dany and her handmaids rest in Xaro's palace.
Did you see the dress Xaro had made for you? They say he's the wealthiest man in Karth. It is known. And if Karth is the wealthiest city in Essos...
The last time a rich man gave me a dress, he was selling me to Kaltrog. Zara is our host, but we know nothing about him. Men like to talk about other men when they're happy.
You would look like a real princess in Zara.
She's not a princess, she's a Khaleesi. You should wear it, Khaleesi. You are their guest. It would be rude not to.
The problems with Doria already start here. Dany makes a veiled suggestion that Doria tries to seduce Xaro and find out more information about him and Karth more probably. This is what I meant back in part 1, where I first said that the showrunners had a terrible track record with depiction of sexual slavery. First, they romanticized Dany's and Drogo's relationship far more than even George did. Now, Doria is a former sex slave who had only recently been freed from bondage. Nonetheless, the writers reduced her to a seductress, as they did in season 1, when she was still a sex slave. And this isn't who Doria was in the books. From what we know, she was actually shy, sweet and gentle. Yet already in season 1, she was presented as some sort of a femme fatale, with her entrancing Viserys and teaching Dany in this sexualized manner. In season 5, Tyrion is in a Volantene brothel, but has no money to pay. So one of the slaves offers him her services for free. A slave offers Tyrion her services for free. Like she can make that choice to begin with. Which is why it leads me to believe that the showrunners don't actually know what slavery is and what it entails. Checks out considering that they wanted to direct a show where the Confederacy won, and believe that killing slavers is what makes dumb historical women go mad. Here is perhaps a good moment to touch upon another issue that goes far beyond only Dany's storyline. Irri snaps at Doria for absolutely no reason, after which she backtracks and leaves without apologizing, though she looks somewhat guilty. A deleted scene for season 2 shows that it was Doria who later killed Irri because she didn't like her. And Irri's and Doria's catfight is not an isolated incident. Game of Thrones has a terrible track record with how it adapts nearly all female relationships. While the books also leave a lot to be desired in this instance, the show goes out of its way to make women be in constant competition with each other. In the books, the Sand Snakes all love each other, whereas in the show, Tyene and Nymeria have some unresolved beef for absolutely no reason. In the Vale, Sansa has a positive relationship with Myranda Royce, but the show invents Ramsay's psycho girlfriend who is jealous and sneak disses her all the time. In season 7, even upon reuniting after a long period of separation, Sansa and Arya are in a pointless conflict one conversation would have solved, with Arya even threatening to cut Sansa's face and wear it. So this isn't something reserved just for Irri and Doria. This is how the showrunners chose to adapt nearly all of the relationships between women. I think only Brienne and Catelyn get a semblance of a friendship or mutual respect. For everyone else, it's constant catfights. The next scene has Dany and her people invited to a garden party. Kavaro and another Dothraki try to steal a golden statue from Xaro's garden, and Dany scolds them.
What are they doing?
Malako says the statue is too heavy to carry. Kavaro says that Malako is an idiot. They can pry out the gems, the rest is pure gold. Very soft. He can chop off as much as we can carry.
Czy iwisaki mai, desise.
Kishinevaki mai. Jelas vos verani mai, vos tavi mai, vos ivisi mai.
Vasechi jehalisi. Kisha boya ke cesaram kishi.
Kashnevaki vos alaich.
Vos are kifrendigi.
Hash adrik kishi vos yere ashaun, anha adrik kishi vos alich.
While indeed at some point Dany thinks whether the Dothraki see Karth only as a place to plunder, the inclusion of this scene is not at all necessary. It is intended to be comedic, and I'm more than happy to see Emilia Clarke smile, a precious thing because it won't be happening too often, but the punchline of the joke is that the Dothraki are damp, uncivilized, and willing to steal, and it's Daenerys who has to talk them out of it. The Dothraki are already one-dimensional in the books, why make them even more caricaturistic in the show? There is an answer, and it starts with R. Piatri appears for the first time in the show and introduces himself, later inviting Dany to the house of the Undying and showing her some magic tricks. Cool. But then something absolutely outrageous happens.
You watch over her.
Do I know you?
I know you. Jorah Mormont of Fair Island.
Who are you?
I'm no one. But she is the mother of dragons. She needs true protectors, now more than ever. They shall come day and night to see the wonder born into the world again. And when they see, they shall lust. For dragons are fire made flesh, and fire is power.
Quaithe does not interact with Dany once. The two scenes she is in, she actually converses with Jorah. When in the books, it's Daenerys she talks to. Last of the three seekers to depart was Quaithe the Shadowbinder. From her, Dany received only a warning. Beware, the woman in the lead lacquer mask said. Of whom? Of all. They shall come day and night to see the wonder that has been born again into the world. And when they see, they shall last. For dragons are fire made flesh, and fire is power. When Quaithe too was gone, Ser Jorah said, She speaks truly, my queen, though I like her no more than the others. Xaro and Dany talk about Jorah, with Xaro noting that Jorah is in love with Dany, which Dany denies. In the books, Dany realizes that herself, when he talks about his previous wife, Lynesse Hightower, and mentions that she resembles Dany. This is a fairly minor thing, but it takes away from Dany's perceptiveness. Then they speak about their respective ambitions. Xaro has evolved with a lot of wealth and promises that he will give half of it to Dany if she marries him. Xaro mentions that Robert Baratheon is dead, and what follows is a mild argument between Dany and Jorah.
If you cross the sea with an armor you bought and a
Seven
fallen
kingdoms
husband
are
who
at
paid
war
for
with
it.
one another. 4 false kings destroying the country.
To win Westeros, you need support from Westeros.
The usurper is dead. The Starks fight the Lannisters, the Baratheons fight each other.
According to your new friend, who earned your trust by cutting his hand?
The time to strike is now. We need to find ships and an army or we'll spend the rest of our lives rotting away at the edge of the world.
Rich men do not become rich by giving more than they get. They'll give you ships and soldiers, and they'll own you forever. Moving carefully is the hard way, but it's the right way.
And if I'd listened to that advice outside the gates of Karth, we'd all be dead by now.
I know the opportunity before you seems like the last you'll ever have, but you must
Do not speak to me like I'm a child.
I only want
What do you want? Tell me.
to see you on the Iron Throne.
Why?
You have a good claim, a title, a birthright, but you have something more than that. You may cover it up and deny it, but you have a gentle heart. You would not only be respected and feared, you would be loved. Someone who can rule and should rule. Centuries come and go without a person like that coming into the world. There are times when I look at you and I still can't believe you're real.
So what would you have me do as my advisor?
Make your own way. Find your own ship. You only need one. The allies we need are in Westeros, not Garth.
And how do I get this ship?
I'll find it for you. Sound ship with a good captain.
I look forward to meeting him.
This argument does not happen in the books. Dany wants to immediately go to Westeros and Jorah has to talk her out of it, positioning Jorah as a voice of reason for Daenerys. In the books, she is far less emotionally affected by the news and does not rush to immediately make it to Westeros. Khaleesi, the knight said when they were alone, I should not speak so freely of your plans if I were you. This man will spread the tale wherever he goes now. Let him, she said. Let the whole world know my purpose. The usurper is dead. What does it matter? Not every sailor's tale is true, said Jorah cautioned. And even if Robert be truly dead, his son rules in his place. This changes nothing, truly. This changes everything. Dany rose abruptly. Before, the 7 kingdoms were like my Drogo's Kalasar, 100,000 made as one by his strength. Now they fly to pieces, even as the Kalasar did after my Khal lay dead. The High Lords have always fought. Tell me who's won, and I will tell you what it means. Khaleesi, the 7 kingdoms are not going to fall into your hands like so many ripe peaches. You will need a fleet, gold, armies, alliances. All this I know. She took his hands in hers and looked up into his dark, suspicious eyes. Sometimes he thinks of me as a child he must protect, and sometimes as a woman he would like to bed. But does he ever truly see me as his queen? I am not the frightened girl you met in Pentos. I have counted only 15 name days, true. But I am as old as the crones in the Dosh Khalin, and as young as my dragons, Jorah. I have borne a child, burned a Khal, and crossed the Red Waste and the Dothraki Sea. Mine is the blood of the dragon. As was your brother's, he said stubbornly. I am not Viserys. No, he admitted. There is more of Rhaegar in you, I think. But even Rhaegar could be slain. Robert proved that on the Trident, with no more than a warhammer. Even dragons can die. Dragons die. She stood on her toes to kiss him lightly on an unshaven cheek. But so do dragon slayers. This is a much more interesting dialogue than this silly back and forth, which centers Jorah and his feelings to Dany, as opposed to Dany herself, and paints her as unreasonable. Dany also never denies that she has a gentle heart. In fact, she is affectionate, loving and protective of her people since the very beginning. She even kisses Jorah on the cheek, something she does often to other people as well. Jorah says a line that makes things awkward and cements Saro's previous assertion that he is in love with her. And here is a good moment to start the discussion of Jorah's characterization in the show. I'm not sure how old Jorah is supposed to be in the show. Ian Glenn was in his early 50s when season 2 of the show was in production. Daenerys is supposed to be around 17-18 at this point. Book Jorah is around his mid-40s to Dany's 14-15. And believe it or not, in a rare move from George, the book does acknowledge this power imbalance and the fact that Jorah tries to groom her. The show, however, positions Jorah's love for Daenerys as a genuine, praiseworthy devotion, and his mistrust towards everyone as justified. Book Jorah is a very different character. He is not particularly attractive and has none of Ian's charm. Book Jorah is grumpy, possessive and jealous of every man in Dany's presence, intentionally trying to isolate her so that she relies on him and him alone. All the examples of grooming. Book Jorah also does some outrageous things further down the line that were excluded from the show, that we will discuss in part 3 of this series, once we cover A Storm of Swords. But the seeds of how different show Jorah is were planted this season. First, it's still weird to portray a man who I assume is in his 50s falling in love with a 17-18-year-old as genuine devotion. It's also strange that show Dany is overly trusting of men like Xaro, and it's Jorah who needs to remind her that she should have a healthy dose of mistrust towards people she meets. In the books, Dany herself is aware of that, and Jorah's extreme suspicion of everyone is not really there because he wants to protect her, but because he wants to be the only one by her side. This is not to say that Jorah's suspicions are always baseless. In the books, Xaro indeed is shady and he does betray her in A Dance with Dragons, but it's not a problem since Dany never particularly trusted him, and Xaro's betrayal is far stronger in the show. This shows Jorah's attempts at isolating her so that she relies on him and him alone as justified and the right course of action. It also makes Dany seem gullible and irresponsible. The pattern of giving prominence to other characters in the story at Dany's expense continues from season 1. There are non-POV characters in season 2 that get more prominence than POVs and even get some extra scenes. Melisandre and Stannis get scenes that were not witnessed by Davos, a primary POV in their vicinity, until Melisandre gets a POV in Dance. But this is never done at the expense of said POV, much less one of the POVs of the Key 5. But Jorah was consistently made to be one of the protagonists of the story alongside Daenerys, as opposed to a supporting character. Look no further at the fact that it's him who talks to Quaithe and not Dany. This diminishes her importance in her own story. Moving on to the next episode, Daenerys tries to negotiate with the Spice King of Karth.
He shouldn't make me wait.
The Spice King is the second wealthiest man in Karth. He makes everyone wait. Of course, you could have avoided this embarrassment if you married the wealthiest man in Karth.
I already have a husband.
Khal Drogo is gone, Khaleesi. You are far too young to be a widow forever, and far too beautiful.
You are far too smart to think that I will succumb to flattery.
I have traveled very far in my life and met many women, and none that are immune to flattery.
The mother of dragons!
Here he comes.
Forgive me, I had terrible dreams last night. Terrible dreams. I could not sleep until the sun was shining and the birds were singing. Look what a beauty you are now the red waste has been washed off you. I am sorry about all that unpleasantness. The silver hair of a true Targaryen. Zaro Zoan Doxos. She is far too lovely for a glorified dock worker like yourself.
Very true. And yet they say that your grandfather, who sold pepper off the back of a wagon, married a lady far lovelier and higher born than himself.
Every lady alive was lovelier and higher born than my grandfather. Did my servants not offer you something to eat? To drink? I'll have them flogged in the square.
Thank you, my lord. You are a gracious host. But there is no servant alive that can bring me what I want.
Oh, she has a talent for drama, this one. So, my little princess, what is it you want?
My birthright. The 7 kingdoms of Westeros.
I fear I'm no better than a servant in this regard. I cannot give you what I do not have.
I'm not asking you for the kingdoms. I'm asking you for ships. I need to cross the narrow sea.
I need my ships as well. I use them, you see, to bring spices from one port to another.
Whatever you grant me now will be repaid 3 times over when I retake the Iron Throne.
Retake? Did you once sit on the Iron Throne?
My father sat there before he was murdered.
But if you did not sit on it yourself, would it not be correct to say, take the Iron Throne?
I didn't come here to argue grammar.
Of course not. You came to take my ships. So let me explain my position, little princess. Unlike you, I do not have exalted ancestors. I make my living by trade, and I judge every trade on its merits. You ask for ships. You say I shall be repaid triple. I do not doubt your honesty or your intentions, but before you repay your debts, you must seize the 7 kingdoms. Do you have an army?
Not yet.
You do not have an army. Do you have powerful allies in Westeros?
There are many there that support my claim.
When were you there last?
I left when I was a baby.
So, in truth, you have no allies.
The people will rise to fight for their rightful queen when I return.
Ah. Forgive me, little princess, but I cannot make an investment based on wishes and dreams. Now, if you'll pardon me...
Do you know Illyrio Monpatis, Magister of Pentos?
Yes, we've met. A shrewd man.
For my wedding, he gave me 3 petrified dragon eggs. He believed, the world believed, that the ages had turned them to stone. How many centuries had it been since dragons roamed the skies? But I dreamt that if I carried those eggs into a great fire, they would hatch. When I stepped into the fire, my own people thought I was mad. But when the fire burnt out, I was unhurt. The mother of dragons. Do you understand? I'm no ordinary woman. My dreams come true.
I admire your passion, but in business I trust in logic, not passion. I'm sorry, little princess.
I am not your little princess. I am Daenerys Stormborn of the blood of old Valyria, and I will take what is mine. With fire and blood, I will take it.
Yes, my lady, but not with my ships.
Another outrageous scene where Dany is once more shown as petulant, demanding and argumentative, starkly different from her book counterpart, who always has respect for everyone around her. You know what, I think I figured out what's the purpose of this scene and the scene at the Gates of Karth. The Spice King is intentionally written as condescending in both instances, and to balance this out, Daenerys was written as annoyed by the fact that she is constantly undermined by men. I do despise this word with every fiber of my being, but I cannot find another one. The show intentionally portrayed Dany as a girl boss, who will not let such condescension slide and will assert herself as a strong woman, demanding of what is rightfully hers. This is also why even book Daenerys is also disparagingly called a girl boss. Yet another residue from the show. You know, I wouldn't necessarily be against this if it was another character, because I think women should have the right to be as demanding and entitled as men without it being seen as a character flaw. One of the examples where I support such a character is Rhaenyra Targaryen, who, coincidentally, acts more like book Daenerys in the adaptation. I do not, however, support this change, because this is not how Daenerys is in the books. She is polite and respectful, and does not need to make such shows of power and authority. In the show, she claims that the realm will rise for the rightful queen, while in the books Dany thinks. Viserys had believed that the realm would rise for its rightful king, but Viserys had been a fool, and fools believe in foolish things. Jorah also told her so in season 1, so why does she say it now? I know she may say it to make the negotiations run smoother, but there is another scene later on where she expresses that belief once more. The residue of Daenerys expressing such beliefs in the show was once more projected onto her book character. One of the most popular predictions for Dany is that she fully expects that all of Westeros will throw itself to her feet and will throw a temper tantrum when another Targaryen will be more beloved than her. This is how Viserys would have perhaps reacted. But book Dany never makes those assumptions. She is well aware that she has to win her potential allies in Westeros, and that nobody will rise for her simply because she believes the throne belongs to her. But well, about that part about how Aegon will totally and most certainly be more beloved and supported than Daenerys. And if the dream the prince has dreamed comes true, and the living dragon comes forth here at White Walls, thank finish for him. The throne is yours. Could someone please remind me which one of them has dragons? Aegon or Daenerys? Smiling, he seized his dragon, flew it across the board. I hope your grace will pardon me. Your king is trapped. Death in 4. The prince stared at the playing board. My dragon is too far away to save you. You should have moved her to the center of the battle. But she said, I lied. Trust no one. And keep your dragon close. As it turns out, Daenerys did have dragon dreams in the show. Great. Why didn't we see them though? Show don't tell anyone? And Dany does not brag about her achievements in waking dragons from stone. Quite the opposite. Half a year gone, that man could scarcely wake fire from dragon glass. He had some small skill with powders and wildfire, sufficient to entrance a crowd, while his cat purses did their work. He could walk across hot coals and make burning roses bloom in the air, but he could no more aspire to climb the fiery ladder than the common fisherman could hope to catch a kraken in his nets. Then he looked uneasily at where the ladder had stood. Even the smoke was gone now, and the crowd was breaking up, each man going about his business. In a moment more than a few would find their purses flat and empty. And now his powers grow, Khaleesi. And you are the cause of it. Me? She laughed. How could that be? The woman stepped closer and laid 2 fingers on Dany's wrist. You are the mother of dragons, are you not? I often hear about how Daenerys threatens with dragonfire everyone who disagrees with her, and how she constantly talks about how she will take what is hers with fire and blood. And guess what? Another residue from the show. Daenerys never once utters these words in the books. Let me prove it to you real quick. In the books, the meeting between Dany and the merchants is actually conducted off-screen. I see a deep sadness written upon your face, my light of love. He offered her a goblet. Could it be the sadness of a lost dream? A dream delayed, no more. Dany's tight silver collar was chafing against her throat. She unfastened it and flung it aside. The collar was set with an enchanted amethyst that Xaros swore would ward her against all poisons. The pure-born were notorious for offering poisoned wine to those they thought dangerous, but they had not given Dany as much as a cup of water. They never saw me for a queen, she thought bitterly. I was only an afternoon's amusement, a horse girl with a curious pet. Tell me the words of the pure-born. prompted Xaroxo and Daxos. Tell me what they said to sadden the queen of my heart. They said no. The wine tasted of pomegranates and hot summer days. They said it with great courtesy, to be sure, but under all the lovely words it was still no. Did you flatter them? Shamelessly. Did you weep? The blood of the dragon does not weep, she said testily. Xaro sighed. You ought to have wept. The Guardian wept often and easily. It was considered a mark of the civilized man. The men we bought, what did they say? Mathos said nothing. Wendello praised the way I spoke. The exquisite refused me with the rest, but he wept afterward. Alas, that Carthene should be so faithless. Xaro was not himself of the pure-born, but he had told her whom to bride and how much to offer. Weep, weep, for the treachery of man. So we can assume that Daenerys was not demanding and petulant in her meeting with the guilds of merchants. This also shows that Dany's dragons do not give her an easy way out of everything, like it is claimed by her aunties. At that point of the story, Daenerys considers herself a beggar and is seen as one by the others. And there's another thing that the show omitted. And the Tourmaline Brotherhood pressed on her a crown wrought in the shape of a three-headed dragon. The coals were yellow gold, the wings silver, the heads carved from jade, ivory and onyx. The crown was the only offering she'd kept. The rest she sold, to gather the wealth she had wasted on the pureborn. Xaro would have sold the crown too. The 13 would see that she had a much finer one, he swore. But Dany forbade it. Viserys sold my mother's crown, and men called him a beggar. I shall keep this one, so men will call me a queen. And so she did, though the weight of it made her neck ache. Yet even crowned, I am a beggar still, Dany thought. I have become the most splendid beggar in the world, but a beggar all the same. It saddens me deeply that this crown has never made it into the show. In fact, no crown never has, and even the costume designers had an agenda against Daenerys. I will elaborate on that in later parts. Part of her would have liked nothing more than to lead her people back to Vaes Doloro and make the dead city bloom. This passage is very important because it once more shows what Daenerys actually wants. Simplicity, a home, a place to belong. And the line about making a dead city bloom is one of those elusive foreshadowings that somehow evades the eagle eyes of the readers, who will twist every other line into Mad Queen foreshadowing. The arbor makes the best wine in the world, Dany declared. Lord Redwine had fought for her father against the usurper, she remembered, one of the few to remain true to the last. Will he fight for me as well? There was no way to be certain after so many years. Once more, this line shows that Daenerys knows that the loyalty of even former Targaryen loyalists is dubious at best. Once again, compare and contrast with "The realm will rise for its rightful queen," words taken straight out of Viserys' mouth. It cannot be overstated how heavily the show skewed the perception of Book Daenerys, and how little people are aware of this. I hope to change the tide with this series for at least some people, though I fear that it will probably never fully disappear. This episode ends with Dany realizing that her Khalasar was slaughtered and her dragons stolen. Off-screen, Doria kills Irri. No such thing happened in the books, and in the show, this will be the catalyst for Daenerys to go to the House of the Undying. Daenerys is once more shown as petulant in her conversations with Xaro, even though in the books she is always polite.
I've demanded a meeting of the 13. One of them did this or knows who did.
You are one of the 13.
If I wanted your dragons, I would have taken them. They mean nothing to me on their own.
Nothing. They're more valuable than anything in the world.
Shall we look inside my vault and see what selling your dragons would buy me I cannot buy already? We will get them back.
There is no we. So why would you help me get them back?
I took you under my protection in front of the rulers of my city. A man is what others say he is, and no more. If they say that Xaro Zohan Doxos is a liar, my word is worth nothing. I cannot let this thing happen to you under my roof.
But it did happen under your roof.
Khaleesi, many times in my life, I have been...
I don't care where you've been.
Then Jorah returns, having learned what happened.
He came back.
As soon as I heard. Do you know anything?
Irri is dead.
I know. She was a good...
She's dead. She died alone. She died for me and I couldn't protect her.
Doria?
We can't find her. She must be dead too. I led my people out of the Red Waste and into the slaughterhouse.
I should have been here.
You went to find me a ship.
My place is by your side. I shouldn't have left you alone with these people.
These people?
They are not to be trusted.
And who is to be trusted? Who are my people? The Targaryens. I only knew one, my brother, and he would have let 1,000 men rape me if it had got him the crown. The Dothraki? Most of them turned on me the day that Khal Drogo fell from his horse.
Your people are in Westeros.
People in Westeros don't know I'm alive.
They will soon enough.
And then what? They'll pray for my return, they'll wave dragon banners and shout my name. That's what my brother believes, and he was a fool.
You are not your brother. Trust me, Khaleesi.
There it is. Trust me. And it's you I should trust, Ser Jorah. Only you. I don't need trust any longer. I don't want it, and I don't have room for it.
You are too young to be so.
And you are too familiar.
Forgive me, Khaleesi. No one can survive in this world without help. No one. Let me help you. Please, tell me how.
Find my dragons.
I'm happy to see show Daenerys expressing vulnerability as well as emotions, which will become rare as the series progresses. This scene is also beautifully acted by Emilia Clarke, so the accusations of this being her worst season don't seem right to me. The conversation is slightly similar to the one Jorah and Daenerys have in A Storm of Swords, though there Daenerys is justified in her calling out Jorah, here she is painted as unreasonable. Also, Daenerys contradicts herself. In a conversation with the Spice King, she said that the people will rise for their rightful ruler. Here she says that Viserys was a fool to believe that. In another scene, she will once more assert that the people are waiting for her. So which is it? Because it can be both. Jorah meets with Quaithe again, who, I remind you, never once interacts with Daenerys. This meeting does not have much relevance outside of once more telling the audience that Jorah is in love with Daenerys. So I will ignore it, just like the showrunners ignored Quaithe. Dany is once more forced to grovel at the feet of the 13 for whatever reason. Piatri admits that he was the one to kidnap the dragons, Xera does a cue to install himself as the King of Karth, and Piat says that Dany must go to the House of the Undying to retrieve her dragons. I don't feel the need to discuss this scene, instead I will focus on the next scene between Dany and Jorah that happens in the next episode.
Careful, Khaleesi. Zara owns this city and the warlocks have 1,000 eyes watching for you. I've found one. A ship with a good captain. She leaves for Astapor tomorrow.
Astapor?
We cannot stay here.
They have my dragons. Mother does not flee without her children.
They're not your children. I know they call you the mother of dragons, and I know you love them, but you didn't grow them in your womb. They didn't suckle at your breast. They are dragons, Khaleesi. And if we stay in Karth, we'll die.
You should sail to Astapor. I'm sure you'll be safe there.
You know I would die for you. I will never abandon you. I'm sworn to protect you, to serve.
Then serve me.
If my dragons are in the House of the Undying, then take me there.
That's what the warlock wants. He told you so himself. If you enter that place, you will never leave again. His magic is strong.
And what of my magic? You saw me step into the fire. You watched the witch burn. What did the flames do to me? Do you remember?
Until my last breath, I will remember. After I have forgotten my mother's face.
They are my children. And they are the only children I will ever have. Take me to them.
This exchange pissed me off. Maybe because I've seen too many Dany isn't really a mother takes this past couple of days. Yes, they are her children, and yes, they suckled at her breast. The showrunners should know that because they allegedly read the books, and this is a really weird statement to make overall. Are mothers of adopted children not their mothers if they didn't carry them in their womb and breastfed them? And again we've shown Daenerys bragging about her magic and what she achieved in the Pyre, when in the books she never does that. It is Quaithe who needs to tell her that she is the source of magic returning to the world by birthing the dragons. But Quaithe never once interacts with Dany in the show. But by far the funniest thing about this exchange is that, in the show, Miri never tells Dany that she rendered her infertile with her spells. The when your womb quickens part of the prophecy was skipped. This is a continuity error also visible in Season 7, when Dany tells Jon that she can't have children because the witch said so. No, she didn't say shit. Perhaps it was a setup for something, but it died alongside whatever credibility D&D had as writers. We have discussed many changes from the book's storyline in the show's adaptation of Dany's story in Clash, using the term adaptation very loosely here. The sole big change from this storyline that gets discussed in any way are the significantly reduced prophecies in the House of the Undying. This fit into the broader pattern of removal of magic and fantasy to focus on the political plotline, and it affected Dany the most out of the entire cast. save perhaps for Bran. In the show, Dany sees 3 things: the destroyed throne room, the wall, and a romantic scene with her rapist and abuser. These visions in the show probably get less than 10 minutes of screen time. Perhaps even less than 5. I am too lazy to actually check it. I will focus only on the throne room. This vision was later used by showrunners as proof that they've planned Dany's Mad Queen turn since the beginning. It says so in the scripts for Season 8, Episode 6. The layout of the destroyed Red Keep is completely different, but the script also mentions that for possible deniability. But then, I noticed a detail that I hadn't seen discussed elsewhere. The track from the soundtrack accompanying this scene is named House of the Undying, and if you listen to it very closely, preferably with headphones on, you should hear this sound. This is the same sound we can hear in another track, The Wall, from Season 1. If you listen to the full track, you can actually hear this sound several times, and each time it's getting louder. Ramin Djawadi operated with leitmotifs when composing the soundtrack of Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. This sound is a leitmotif of The Wall. You can also hear it in the tracks Wall of Ice in Season 3, Kneel for No Man in Season 5, and probably some others I don't remember right now. And quite fittingly, it's the wall that Dany sees next. So yes, this scene was meant to foreshadow something. The army of the dead making it as far as to the Red Keep, or the overall threat of the Long Night. Why else would this scene have a wall leitmotif? Alas, it was retconned because the army of the dead was defeated in the regular night, and that storyline meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. When Dany leaves the vision of Drogo, if it can even be called that, she finds her dragons and the following conversation follows.
They miss their mother. They want to be with you. Do you want to be with them? You will be. When your dragons were born, our magic was born again. It is strongest in their presence. And they are strongest in yours. You will be with them. Winter, summer, winter again. Across 1,000 seasons, you will be with them. And we will be with you until time comes to an end. Welcome home, Daenerys Stormborn.
This is not my home. My home is across the sea where my people are waiting for me.
They will be waiting a long time.
This is the scene I mentioned previously when I said that Dany keeps contradicting herself. Are the people waiting for her, or was Viserys a fool to believe that for himself? We get conflicting answers, depending on which episode we're watching. Whatever the case, she burns Pyat Pree and exits the House of the Undying. After the dragons are freed and Dany leaves the House of the Undying, it turns out that Doria was involved in the stealing of Dany's dragons. The vault Xaro showed Dany turns out to be empty, and Dany orders Xaro and Doria to be closed inside, as triumphant and uplifting music plays. The same Doria that, in the books, died on the Dothraki Sea, comforted by Dany until her last breath. Xaro too is alive in the books and even appears in A Dance with Dragons. Dothraki happily sack Xaro's mans, and the triumphant, uplifting music continues. It's the track Mother of Dragons, in case you want to listen for yourself. In one of my videos, I made a point about how even the scenes that showed Dany as more ruthless and unforgiving than her book counterpart failed to set up Mad Queen foreshadowing, precisely because of the framing, and music plays a key role in this. If this is the big Mad Queen setup, why isn't the music ominous to signal to us the birth of a tyrant? Moreover, why does nobody resist Dany's move? Jorah and Daenerys joke around right after they condemn Xaro and Doria for a horrible death. This shows that she was framed as completely in the right for that choice, whether you like it or not. The show omitted one important aspect of Dothraki culture, the bells in their hair for every victory. Jihui had braided her hair Dothraki fashion, and fastened a silver bell to the end of the braid. "I have won no victories," she tried telling her handmaid, when the bell tinked softly. Jihui disagreed. "You burned the Maegi in the House of Dust and sent their souls to hell." "That was Drogon's victory, not mine," Dany wanted to say, but she held her tongue. The Dothraki would esteem her all the more for a few bells in her hair. Often I hear about how Daenerys is an evil colonizer who appropriates the Dothraki culture. This is a good debunk of this dumb argument. First of all, once you marry someone of a different culture, you are invited to share that culture with them. This happened with Drogo and Daenerys. Other people of said culture are also allowed to invite you to share this culture with you. And it is Jhiqui, a Dothraki, who insists that she will braid Dany's hair and put bells there. Even though Dany resists the idea at first and even attributes the victory to Drogon. Unfortunately, the meaning of cultural appropriation has become very muddy these days, and people invoke it even in the instances when it does not apply, this being one of the examples. Cultural appropriation is appropriation, not cultural exchange that has been happening for centuries. Since Xaro lives in the books, Dany cannot rob his palace of riches. Daenerys has to flee Qarth in fear of her life. It was not by choice that she sought the waterfront. She was fleeing again. Her whole life had been one long flight, it seemed. She had begun running in her mother's womb, and never once stopped. How often had she and Viserys stolen away in the black of night, a bare step ahead of the usurper's hired knives. But it was run or die. Xaro had learned that Pyat Pri was gathering the surviving warlocks together to work ill on her. He sighed. These are strange times in Qarth, and strange times are bad for trade. It grieves me to say so, yet it might be best if you left Qarth entirely, and sooner rather than later. Xaro stroked her fingers reassuringly. You need not go alone, though. You have seen dark visions in the Palace of Dust, but Xaro has dreamed brighter dreams. I see you happily abed, with our child at your breast. Sail with me around the Jade Sea, and we can yet make it so. It is not too late. Give me a son, my sweet song of joy. Give me a dragon, you mean. I will not wed you, Xaro. His face had grown cold at that. Then go. But where? Somewhere far from here. Dany had not seen him since. His seneschal brought her messages, each cooler than the last. She must quit his house. He was done feeding her and her people. He demanded the return of his gifts, which she had accepted in bad faith. Her only consolation was that at least she had the great good sense not to marry him. Dany's fears turned out to be true, as there is an assassination attempt on her in this chapter, but since it happens in the next season in the show, we will talk about it there. The visions in the House of the Undying in the books constitute the entirety of Daenerys for A Clash of Kings. Much can be said about the visions, its contents and meanings, and I already did it once in another video. Here I want to point out some things. Drogon is with Dany the entire time, and it's Drogon who saves her from being devoured by the Undying, by burning and eating their rotten heart. And we know that there is another heart that likely powers certain undead creatures. That's foreshadowing of something, but as always, the eagle eyes who won't miss a single foreshadowing of Dany being mad don't see that. Season 2 storyline is nearly as bad as Season 8 in terms of Daenerys' characterization. This Daenerys is a completely different character from the humble, respectful girl in the books. There is no good excuse for the changes done to Dany in this season. There is no excuse for making her demanding and petulant. There is no excuse for replacing Doria's canon death with whatever that was. There is no excuse for the further downplaying of magical and fantastical elements. It cannot be plausibly denied with there was not enough material, not if you cut what you did have, while replacing it with things that were taken out of nowhere. Again, while the changes in the visions of the House of the Undying are often discussed, what isn't is Dany's drastically different characterization in this season, and how it gets projected on her book counterpart to this very day. Daenerys is not petulant, impatient, or arrogant. Daenerys is not bragging about her achievements. Daenerys does not believe that the people of Westeros will rise for her. Daenerys does not threaten anyone with fire and blood. One thing I don't understand, however, are the complaints according to which Season 2 is Emilia's worst season. I think the opposite. This season at least allows Dany to be emotional. Afterwards, she will be directed to only be stoic. The "where are my dragons" scene indeed is a bit jarring, but otherwise she has shown range here, especially considering that, right before that, she suffered a life-threatening brain injury. I immediately felt as though an elastic band was squeezing my brain. I tried to ignore the pain and push through it, but I just couldn't. I told my trainer I had to take a break. Somehow, almost crawling, I made it to the locker room. I reached the toilet, sank to my knees, and proceeded to be violently, voluminously ill. Meanwhile, the pain, shooting, stabbing, constricting pain, was getting worse. At some level, I knew what was happening. My brain was damaged. For a few moments, I tried to will away the pain and the nausea. I said to myself, I will not be paralyzed. I moved my fingers and toes to make sure that was true. To keep my memory alive, I tried to recall, among other things, some lines from Game of Thrones. I heard a woman's voice coming from the next stall, asking me if I was okay. No, I wasn't. She came to help me, and maneuvered me onto my side, in the recovery position. Then everything became at once noisy and blurry. I remember the sound of a siren, an ambulance. I heard new voices, someone saying that my pulse was weak. I was throwing up bile. Someone found my phone and called my parents, who live in Oxfordshire, and they were told to meet me at the emergency room of Whittington Hospital. A fog of unconsciousness settled over me. From an ambulance, I was wheeled on a gurney into a corridor, filled with the smell of disinfectant and the noises of people in distress. Because no one knew what was wrong with me, the doctors and nurses could not give me any drugs to ease the pain. Finally, I was set for an MRI, a brain scan. The diagnosis was quick and ominous: a subarachnoid hemorrhage, SAH, a life-threatening type of stroke, caused by bleeding into the space surrounding the brain. I've had an aneurysm, an arterial rupture. As I later learned, about a third of CHA patients die immediately or soon thereafter. For the patients who do survive, urgent treatment is required to seal up the aneurysm, as there is a very high risk of a second, often fatal bleed. If I was to live and avoid terrible deficits, I would have to have urgent surgery, and, even then, there were no guarantees. I remember being told that I should sign a release form for surgery, brain surgery. I was in the middle of my very busy life. I had no time for brain surgery. But finally, I settled down and signed. And then I was unconscious. For the next 3 hours, surgeons went about repairing my brain. This would not be my last surgery, and it would not be the worst. I was 24 years old. The first surgery was what is known as minimally invasive, meaning that they did not open up my skull. Rather, using a technique called endovascular coiling, the surgeon introduced a wire into one of my femoral arteries in the groin. The wire made its way north, around the heart, and to the brain, where they seal off the aneurysm. The operation lasted 3 hours. When I woke, the pain was unbearable. I had no idea where I was. My field of vision was constricted. There was a tube down my throat, and I was parched and nauseated. They moved me out of the ICU after 4 days and told me that the great hurdle was to make it to the 2-week mark. If I made it that long with minimal complications, my chances of a good recovery were high. One night after I'd passed that crucial mark, a nurse woke me and, as part of a series cognitive exercises, she said, "What's your name?" My full name is Emilia Isobel Euphemia Rose Clark, but now I couldn't remember it. Instead, nonsense words tumbled out of my mouth, and I went into a blind panic. I'd never expected to feel like that, a sense of doom closing in. I could see my life ahead, and it wasn't worth living. I am an actor. I need to remember my lines. Now I couldn't recall my name. I was suffering from a condition called aphasia, a consequence of the trauma my brain had suffered. Even as I was muttering nonsense, my mom did me the great kindness of ignoring it and trying to convince me that I was perfectly lucid. But I knew I was faltering. In my worst moments, I wanted to pull the plug. I asked the medical staff to let me die. My job, my entire dream of what my life would be, centered on language, on communication. Without that, I was lost. I was sent back to the ICU, and after about a week, the aphasia passed. I was able to speak. I knew my name, all 5 bits. But I was also aware that there were people in the beds around me who didn't make it out of the ICU. I was continually reminded of how fortunate I was. 1 month after being admitted, I left the hospital, longing for a bath and fresh air. I had press interviews to do, and, in a matter of weeks, I was scheduled to be back on the set of Game of Thrones. I went back to my life, but while I was in the hospital, I was told that I had a smaller aneurysm on the other side of my brain, and it could pop at any time. The doctor said, though, that it was small and it was possible it would remain dormant and harmless indefinitely. We would just keep a careful watch, and recovery was hardly instant. There was still the pain to deal with, and morphine to keep it at bay. I told my bosses at Thrones about my condition, but I didn't want it to be a subject of public discussion and dissection. The show must go on. Even before we began filming season 2, I was deeply unsure of myself. I was often so woozy, so weak, that I thought I was going to die. Staying at a hotel in London during a publicity tour, I vividly remember thinking, I can keep up or think or breathe, much less try to be charming. I sipped on morphine in between interviews. The pain was there, and the fatigue was like the worst exhaustion I'd ever experienced, multiplied by 1,000,000. And, let's face it, I'm an actor. Vanity comes with the job. I spent way too much time thinking about how I looked. If all this weren't enough, I seemed to walk my head every time I tried to get in a taxi. On the first day of shooting for season 2, in Dubrovnik, I kept telling myself, I am fine, I'm in my 20s, I'm fine. I threw myself into the work. But after that first day of filming, I barely made it back to the hotel before I collapsed of exhaustion. On the set, I didn't miss a beat, but I struggled. Season 2 would be my worst. I didn't know what Daenerys was doing. If I am truly being honest, every minute of every day, I thought I was going to die. But I survived. I survived MTV and so much more. In the years since my second surgery, I have healed beyond my most unreasonable hopes. I am now at 100%. Beyond my work as an actor, I've decided to throw myself into a charity I've helped develop in conjunction with partners in the UK and the US. It is called Same You, and it aims to provide treatment for people recovering from brain injuries and stroke. I feel endless gratitude to my mom and brother, to my doctors and nurses, to my friends. Every day I miss my father, who died of cancer in 2016, and I can never thank him enough for holding my hand to the very end. This was not known at the time, yet even with this knowledge, people still feel the need to come for Emilia's acting, which isn't even bad, even though she recorded this season after a brain damage that could have left her paralyzed or dead. When she first woke from the surgery, she was unable to say her own name. And as this info was getting released publicly, a certain segment of the fandom kept making disgusting comments about Emilia, comments that continue to this day. Thankfully, Emilia Clarke survived and is making the world a better place with her charity, Same You. I would like to encourage you to donate to Same You instead of giving me super thanks. This is the end of part 2. Part 3 will deal with a sum of sorts. As of now, thanks for watching. Remember that if you like my content, like, subscribe and share, so that more people can see it. Make sure to click the notification button so that you never miss a new video. And remember, Phoenix rises from the ashes, and ashes always stand on top.